What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 18 of The Coach and the Couch Potato. Lucky Tate Martell.
Yeah.
Uh, as always, I'm Jeremy, the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. Before we get into how our week was, it's only fitting we wish Corey Chapman a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Chatty.
That man is the GOAT.
Yes, he is.
And for those of you who don't know Chat, you'll get to know him at some point this summer.
Yeah.
We are going to have him on. But with that said, how was your week, sir?
It was good. Mother's Day was great. Just hung out with the wife and kids. Got some church in. Went over to my grandmother's house. So it was all good, man. My grandma is 97 years old, man, and she's just living by herself on Park Street, like just living her best life, man. Yeah. So
Probably out here still being a firecracker.
yeah, she is. She is. But yeah, man, everything was good, man. How about yours?
Good. Pretty low key. Got the kiddo home from school this week. Not that I've got to see him much. He's a busy man. Had prom with his girlfriend this weekend for her senior prom.
Nice.
Let me tell you, Worcester Triway does it right though. They do like this whole like processional. And he's like, she told me that they were going to introduce us. And I walk out on stage and it's like the Marion Palace Theater filled to the roof of people. And so they introduced him, and so him and her have this little handshake. So they did their handshake on stage. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, Mother's Day was good, low key. Had Sabrina's birthday this week as well, so she got double whammied with getting spoiled a little bit. So yeah, other than that, we're just chugging along. Pretty low key episode planned today, but it should be a fun one.
It should be a fun one. Hey, before we move on, Sabrina is the nicest human being outside. Like her and my wife are very similar personalities, just great human beings. And it's just like Sabrina's I don't think I've ever seen her mad. Like she's always smiling, always in a good mood. So shout out to Sabrina. What a great one.
We are obviously blessed, and we say that all the time, as we've taken this on, but we truly are.
Heck yeah.
We've got wives in our lives that support us. They would go to the ends of the earth for us. We're just a couple of knuckleheads out here wanting to talk sports, and they take care of us. I made a Facebook post yesterday, about my mom and my mother-in-law and Sabrina. And I used the word that Sabrina's a saint.
Yeah.
Jaden and I are not easy to live with. Let's be 100% honest. At the end of the day, we are boys. I leave socks lay around. That's, one of my fatal flaws. And, she just chalks it up to me being stupid, I guess. So yeah, so happy Mother's Day belatedly to all the moms out there.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, you guys are rock stars. I couldn't imagine birthing a child. So
no.
On the being guys front though, potentially an NCAA 25 release date coming this week, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Got a little ticker going there. The Buckeye fans are up in arms. The deluxe edition, which I believe I saw today, $150.
Yeah.
What happened to the days of going to Bowling Green the week before the game came out, getting it for like $50-$60, and Donovan Edwards.
They're making up for lost time. They got to get their money,
I guess. Donovan Edwards, Travis Hunter, Ewers. You can see Quinshon Judkins on there. So pretty cool cover. Really hits some of the big names. I don't think you'll see any of those guys as the individual guys, though.
Yeah.
And obviously, anytime in a way, it's kind of a full circle thing. You had Denard Robinson as the cover boy of the last one.
Yeah.
You get Edwards now. I mean, I guess my only beef with it, if you're going to put a Michigan guy there, it should have been Will Johnson, I think.
that I was super dumbfounded by that. Not a knock on Donovan Edwards. I think Donovan
No,
Edwards I think he's a dog. I think he's so good. But I
he
thought for sure if it was going to be a Michigan man, as they like to say, I figured it would have been Will Johnson for sure.
yeah, Donovan Edwards, man, like when the year Corum got hurt and everybody was like, "Oh, we're gonna win." I'm like, "Yo, be careful what you ask for."
Yeah.
We recruited this kid hard.
Yes, we
So,
did.
watched a lot of film on him. You know who doesn't have a player visible? The University of Miami, though. So there's this week's shot at Miami. So yeah, got that. Just other random sports stuff that came out. I don't know if you even saw this yet. Week 1, Dallas at Cleveland, 4:25 p.m. on Fox.
Really? I didn't. I have not even seen that at all. Okay.
The broadcast debut of TB12
There
will
we
be in
go.
Cleveland. Speaking of TB12, did you watch the roast?
I saw clips of it, man.
Don't watch it with the girls around.
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh.
Very entertaining stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Julian Edelman on his podcast was talking to Drew Bledsoe, and they were like talking about the tension between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. And he was like trying to give Bill a heads up, like, hey, you know who's here. And then Bill just didn't Coach Belichick just didn't give, he didn't care at all. So
No,
yeah.
they tore Edelman apart.
Yeah.
But then Edelman went ham on Belichick. He's like, Coach Belichick, you always tell us to do our job. How about you get a job?
Wow.
He's like, you used to always tell us that the kids at Foxborough High could do it better. Well, maybe you should go coach there because that's the only place that'll hire you. Like, it was crazy, man. Nikki Glazer. I had never heard of Nikki Glazer in my life.
She's been on every roast I've ever seen.
And let me tell you, Homegirl is hilarious.
Yeah. I heard some of the stuff she said. I was like,
very, very risque. And I guess there was a segment she was on McAfee and she's talking about the jokes that she didn't tell. So I gotta find that because it sounds like it's even worse than what she said.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it pretty slow week in the Buckeye world. Which is not a bad thing this time of year. Anytime you can get through the off season and it be a quiet week,
yeah,
that's a good thing. Especially the guys are back home. Now we do have Muirfield coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah,
looking at you, Kirk Barton. So with that, we wanted to dive in because I feel like Ohio State, more so than a lot of programs, has a pretty big number of quote unquote what ifs out there.
Yeah.
And so we threw it out there to the public. What are some of the one, and a lot of the ones that we got thrown to us were ones that I would have thought of, and I'm sure you would have as well.
Yeah.
So the thing that stood out to me is nobody brought up any recruiting misses. Because to me there's some of those.
Yeah, for sure.
You go back to Deshaun Watson or Taj Boyd is the one that I feel like would have been kind of that game changer.
That was a big one.
So yeah, we're just gonna kind of go through some of those and kind of bounce off of each other and just kind of flow with it. We hope you guys enjoy this. Last time we kind of free flowed through everything. I thought it was one of the best episodes we did. So, yeah. So we will start with, and this one was brought up by multiple people. 2015 Michigan State.
Sad day.
Oh man,
sad day.
Gives me PTSD to go with 97 Michigan State.
Sad day.
2015 Ohio State, you're coming off of a natty, and you are head and shoulders the most talented team in America. 15 was the year we were supposed to win a natty. We were supposed to win it in 14. Just a miserable day in that stadium weather-wise. Cold, rainy. I believe it was a 3:30 game. So then you get into the evenings. You have probably the best running back in the country
Yep.
in Zeke, and he carried the ball like 10 or 12 times.
He carried
Something
the
stupid.
ball. He carried the ball. I just pulled up the stats. 12 times for 33 yards and 1 touchdown.
And JT Barrett probably threw the ball 35 times that game. It was.
It seemed like it. He only threw the ball 16 times, but it shouldn't even have been that many. It should have
No.
been like 8 to 10.
So, what if Ezekiel Elliott gets the ball more and Ohio State wins that game?
Man, that team was so talented. Gosh, when we with Braxton coming back and moving him to a utility player, and obviously he set the world on fire with the spin move of Virginia Tech. I'm like, oh my gosh, like but I was kind of worried about that season from the beginning with the way the quarterbacks were handled, and that's not a knock. I mean, it was a tough spot to be in. What if if we win that game? I think we're back to back. I think that team was too talented. I think with Zeke in the backfield, I just feel like he could have carried us to a national championship. That run game, that defense, even with JT, Cardale, whoever it was at quarterback, I think, if we would have rode the hot hand and just stuck with Zeke all year long, just like we did in the last however many games of 2014 when we won the Natty, I feel like we would have gone back to back, and that would have been special. I just feel like that was one of the first times that we had so many mouths to feed. I mean, Braxton Miller came back for a reason. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Cardale Jones had earned the right to get reps in there, and JT earned the right to be the starter. So there was just a lot going on. But that game specifically, hand the ball to Zeke, we find a way to win. I think we're on our way to back for sure.
I agree with you 100%. Because then we came out the next week and just obliterated the team up north. I mean,
yes,
those boys were angry.
Yes.
It just, that one stings a lot because of the amount of talent. But you're right. There were so many guys on that team. But in that weather, you run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's football 101.
And let's not sleep on that Michigan State team, though, either. That team was pretty good. I mean, the quarterback play wasn't the best, but they did have LJ Scott in the backfield. Their defense, their Michigan State's
It's always
defense
going to be
under
good.
D'Antonio was always pretty solid. So I'm not going to sleep on that team because I thought they were pretty solid. But at the same time, come on, like the fact that Zeke got the ball 12 times and JT Barrett out carried him is still mind blowing to me for that game. So I think if we find a way to win, I think obviously we beat the out of the team up north the following week. I think we find a way to go back to back, and that would have been. You wouldn't have been able to tell us anything if we went back to back. Oh my gosh.
No, I mean that one just. And speaking of Sparty in defense, got a commitment today from former Buckeye and former Tar Heel.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite recruits, Legend Cavazos.
Legend.
Dude just never panned out.
Yeah.
But they're building something up there. I mean, they're going to use the portal hard.
Yeah.
And that's all right though.
And don't sleep on that coach, man. That he's good. And you can if you win in Corvallis, you win at Oregon State. You're a good coach.
Yeah, and his guys love him. I mean,
yeah.
So the next one that is a little more recent. What if they call the targeting on Marvin Harrison Jr. in the Georgia game? I don't see a way we lose that game if Marvin Harrison is still there. He was essentially unguardable that night. Stroud was dotting him up all night, doing what CJ does. It just, you go back and watch it, and I try to look at it from every view you can find. And there are times it does not look like targeting.
Yeah.
And so, as far as it getting called, I cannot 100% tell you that they got the call right or wrong, because it just, yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, that was extremely tough. And, like you said, Marv was playing out of his mind. CJ had finally turned into what we thought he would be as a runner, utilizing his legs, extending plays. Everything was going well for us. The only thing I wish about that game is obviously that we had a decent running game. We were banged up and we didn't have some things going our way, but that play was the difference. Like you said, I didn't matter who was lining up against Marv. He was getting open. He was doing his thing. I don't think they would have stopped us at all. And that's another situation. If that doesn't happen, I think we find a way to win. And the crazy thing is we still had a chance.
Yeah.
We still had a chance to win the game. But I think we find a way to win the game if Marv doesn't go down and the targeting call happens and, we find a way to win that game. We go on to win a natty. Ryan Day's legacy is a little different now. And that is, I hate to play that game like we're doing right now. Obviously, we're doing it for an entire show, but man, like that's one that that one hurts. And because it's the most recent one, and you finally it's like all the stars were aligning and then boom, what a gut punch that was.
Yeah, that one was tough. And there's a couple more we're going to get into about that game. And as I sit here and my wheels spin, there might be one that makes me think a little more than the Marv one. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
The next one, we've kind of dabbled on this one a little bit. What if Joe Burrow was the starter his whole career at Ohio State?
What do you think, man? Because I know you're a Haskins guy. Like that is your guy. So what do you think?
Joe Burrow was not ready to start when he came to Ohio State. So to think that Joe Burrow could be your starter the whole time is not realistic.
No.
I think honestly, and I'm a huge Joe Burrow guy. Like I'm a Browns fan, but as sacrilegious as it is, like when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, I wanted the Bengals to win.
Just because of Joe.
Yes, 100%. He's a class act. He gets it. So, obviously, so that battle went into that spring. And Burrow was dinged up. I think it was a hand, wrist, pinky.
Yeah.
One of those little nagging things that doesn't allow him to whip the football around. Which obviously now watching Joe Burrow can throw the ball.
Yeah, he
can. I remember watching him in high school, and he ran more than he threw. I mean, they let it rip, but he beat teams with his legs.
Yeah, he was. Gosh, he was so good.
So, do I think Joe Burrow? Sometimes a change of scenery is just what you need. I don't think Joe was ever going to get a fair crack.
Yeah.
In Columbus. If he's not dinged up, I think the battle, they try to find a way to drag it to fall.
Yeah.
To where you keep him. And then, you run into a situation where maybe Haskins gets hurt and you're like, oh, what do we have here? Because if you look, Joe's first year at LSU, he was average.
Yeah.
So I don't know that his trajectory changes, and I don't think OSU's trajectory changes. I think it's one of those situations where it worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
That allowed Dwayne to do Dwayne things. And obviously, rest in peace, Dwayne. But yes, Joe Burrow is better than Dwayne Haskins as we sit here now. Like, you look back over the entire body of work, including the NFL, now Dwayne going to Washington was the worst thing ever for Dwayne. You're from the DMV. So now you're going to get your uncles and cousins and third brothers and whatever, to where like everybody wants a piece of the pie, not just your money, but your time. Oh, hey, can you come to this event? Or, So yeah, I think Joe going to LSU honestly was the best thing for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think my thing and my take on it, I don't think, as far as the season goes, I don't think anything would have really changed for us. I think you would have seen more of Urban's um, take on the offense rather than Coach Day. If it had been Burrow, you would have seen us run the ball with the quarterback a lot more. And I think we would have been really good. I think, we would have gone to the Rose Bowl, or you know what I mean? Like I think we would have had a very similar season. I just feel that Joe was in the situation where, like you just said, he needed that change of scenery. I do think, though, if we would have had a year of Joe, he wouldn't have left after 1 year. I think he would have stuck around. And so that when I think of what if, I think of what would have happened that following year. You know what I mean? Because Haskins he balled out. He did so well that he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't have a choice but to go.
No,
You know
not
what
at
I
all.
mean? Like, because he was a true pocket passer, whereas Joe was like still developing in that area. Like Joe would have come back for that next year. So my question would have been, okay, what happens after that year? Do we get
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields? You know what I mean? And so that, I
Do
guess
you
that
get CJ Stroud?
exactly. I think that's where my what if goes when I think of that whole situation. Because like you said, when Joe went to LSU, he still had Justin Jefferson. He still had
Jamar Chase. I
Jamar
mean,
Chase as his wide receivers his first year as a starter, and they were very average.
yes.
It wasn't until that next year it took off. And so
Where he took the leap. It wasn't that Jamar Chase got exponentially better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, that one is more of a longevity thing because, like, I'm CJ Stroud, and I see Dwayne, who isn't a real mobile guy, who throws the ball around a lot, and it's like, well, OSU works with them, excuse me. Obviously Justin being a little more mobile, I think, that was a business decision for Justin. It
For
was,
sure.
I need to go somewhere that's got weapons that I
Yep.
can show I can throw the ball and I'm not just a runner. So
Yeah.
I don't know that it affects Justin, but I really do wonder if you end up with CJ.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you, and I think that's where, for me, that's where the what if goes. It's that second year and the dominoes that would fall after that. Do I wish Joe stayed? Heck yeah. Like I think he wanted to be a Buckeye. I think he's got a house and he's got a place in Columbus. He's in the Woody all the time. Like
Yes.
I don't think he wanted to leave. I think he was in a situation where he felt like, this is my time, and it worked out for him. It worked out for Haskins too. So
that one, is a draw, I guess. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody won or lost that one.
Yeah.
So the next one, this one's a little back there. We're gonna go back to 2000, 2001, 2000. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been 2000.
What if Glenn Mason were hired instead of Jim Tressel? As much of a Tressel guy as you are, I can't wait to hear this. So I'm going to punt this one to you.
This is a tough one because, first off, Glenn Mason, like he was a phenomenal coach. He got the most out of where he was. He was at Kansas before he took the Minnesota job, and people just look at his records and be like, "Oh, he had a losing record," but he was still pretty solid and found a way to win in places that weren't traditionally known for winning football games. The one thing that people forget about Glenn Mason is his ties to Ohio State. He was an Ohio State offensive coordinator from 1980 to 1985. All right. So you're looking at a guy who has Ohio State ties, probably viewed Ohio State as a dream job. And so I think with Glenn Mason, I think we would have gotten everything, out of him. And I think Ohio State would have been in a good spot. But I just don't think it would have had the same impact as bringing in a Tressel guy, or Coach Tressel, who was Ohio State through and through. Whatever it takes, we're going to recruit the great state of Ohio. We're going to beat the out of the team up north every single year. Like, to me, that is there, that stands for something. And so, I am a little partial because Tressel is my guy. But I think Ohio State would have remained if Coach Mason would have gotten the job. I think we would have remained a very solid program. I don't think that would have ever changed, but I don't know if we take that next leap like we did with Tress. Tress was the embodiment of what a Buckeye was. And so, like, I don't know if we would have ever had somebody to fill those shoes like he did. And so, like, I don't want to disrespect Coach Mason, because I hope when I'm all said and done coaching that I am as well respected as Glenn Mason is, but I don't think he would have had the same impact as Coach Tress. I do think he would have found success. I think we would have been a 9, 10, 11 win team every single year, and we would have been playing for Rose Bowls and playing for BCS Bowls and things like that. But I don't think we would have been at a level where we could go beat arguably the greatest team ever assembled in the Miami Hurricanes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that would have happened. I just think we would have remained a respectful program. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think Tress was just the right guy at the right time with what we needed, especially coming off of, and all due respect to Coach Cooper, coming off of Coach Cooper, where we kind of stayed at this level. You know what I mean? We stayed right there. We never took that next step, and Tress was the right guy. And at the time, there were a lot of people that questioned whether Tress was the right guy, because he wasn't from a big time school. He won national championships at Youngstown State. Okay, cool. That's great. It's FCS ball. You know what I mean? So it's a good question, man. This is a good question. I hadn't even thought about it until you brought it, until whoever asked the question on Facebook. So this is a good one, man. But I don't think we would have taken the next step had we hired Coach Mason. But that's not a knock on Coach Mason, because I think he's pretty good. You found a way to win 10 games at Minnesota. You found a way to have two of the best running backs in the country at Minnesota. And so, like, he would have been all right, but I don't think we would have taken that next step.
And I agree with you 100%. You hit it perfectly. Right guy, right time.
Yep.
Tress came in. You see this guy, glasses, sweater vest, like WNCI used to say, had a head like a Ken doll. He he looks like your grandpa.
Yeah.
But what you forget is Jim Tressel's from Youngstown.
Yep.
And so he brought more swagger with him than people will ever imagine. And in that time, that's what was needed.
Yeah.
That program needed in 360 days, you will be proud of our young men. So yeah, 100%. And like you said, not a knock on Coach Mason by any means. But yeah, that one's kind of a cool one to dive into.
Yeah, that's a really good one, man.
We kind of talked about the next one at the tail end of the Joe Burrow one. And to me, it's an easy answer. But what if CJ Stroud would have came back last year?
Dude.
To me, that one's no brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
we are winning a Natty.
Yeah.
And CJ is winning a Heisman.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
Yeah. To me, there's not even anything to discuss on that one. Because then you don't have to deal with the Honda Accord.
Yeah.
And now you get a year for Devin and Lincoln. Now, does your room look the way it does now? No. But I would trade that for another Natty.
I would too.
Now this one's interesting because I think a lot of people are going to disagree.
Before we move on, I just want to. This popped up in my head. If Stroud decides to stay, coming off the Georgia game, let's say the targeting call, all those things happen. Coming off the Georgia game, I think CJ Stroud would have, in our big games, used the crap out of his legs because he saw against one of the better teams, that defense at Georgia was sickening how
Oh,
good they were.
nasty.
And he saw just the value of what his legs bring. And I think, honestly, I think that was a springboard for him, not only to have that success in that game, but what he did in his rookie year as with the Texans. He's using his legs now because he saw, like, I can still effectively use my legs and not take big hits. And for some quarterbacks, that is something that they need to experience. They need
A
to
mental
know
hump.
that, they need to know against these great teams that I can still effectively use my legs. And I don't necessarily need to be a JT Barrett and rush for 150 yards. It's great. I mean, we could sit here and say it all the time in the stands and the coaching staffs and the meeting rooms, all those different things. We can say that, but the young man has to experience that for himself. And he needed that confidence. And I think, honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why he struggled with if he should actually go to the NFL, because he saw, like, dang, like, I knew I was good, but I'm a dog. So I think we could run this back, and Marv might go for over 2,000 yards receiving. You know what I mean? Like, TreVeyon Henderson, we get the full TreVeyon Henderson experience. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I just think a lot of things would have changed for Stroud. So that's one of my favorite ones to think about, because for as much hate as Stroud got, that game, I think it just took his confidence, which was already up here. It took it to another level.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you schooled a defense full of prospects. I mean, um, yeah, and for that reason, he'll be one of my favorite guys ever. I mean, he's such a low key dude. So I think you're right about, like, getting over that hump of being like, hey, I can run, but not have to run. I can, because, like, if you watched him, he would scramble in the pocket to try to elongate the play.
Yeah.
But, he never wanted to take that run to where it's like, oh, I can throw the ball now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's cool to think about, because obviously it would have been awesome to see.
Yeah, for sure.
The next one, I think a lot of people are probably going to disagree with my take on, so I'm pretty
Uh-oh.
excited about this one. What if Urban Meyer never left?
I'll let you lead
So,
the way.
so I am of the school of thought. I think Urban Meyer was losing touch with the game. You started to see Urban when Urban was at Florida, Utah, Bowling Green. Urban Meyer did not care if he was playing his grandpa.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer wanted to beat the pants off of you.
He's out for blood.
And there were so many times during his tenure at Ohio State that it's like, dude, what are we doing? We're playing to not to lose. We weren't playing to win. You couple, like I said, where I feel like he was kind of losing touch with today's game. You couple that with NIL, which I think Urban would be like a fish out of water in an NIL environment.
Yeah.
You saw it in Jacksonville. Urban is a control freak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Urban is very type A. And, you walk into the NFL, those dudes are making millions of dollars. And you're not going to be able to talk to them the way you talked to college kids at the time.
Yeah.
And today, you're not going to be able to talk to college kids the way that you used to.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that kids are soft. They just have options.
Not at all.
But, personal thoughts on Urban aside, no matter what side of that fence you're on, the guy did bring a lot of new stuff to the game.
Yes, he did.
But the other side to it is, we've talked about it a hair before. Urban did not balance recruiting well. Urban either had, guys who were let's just call it questionable characters. And now you have Ryan Day, who has been able to take OSU's recruiting to an entirely another level.
Yeah.
He's not recruiting guys with, for the most part, any type of character flaw.
Yeah.
We'll look at, let's drop the name Ruben Owens.
Yeah.
Insanely talented kid. But there have been concerns. At one time I think he was committed to Kentucky or Louisville and then ended up at A&M. And everybody's like, he's one of those kids. He's got that uncle in his back pocket.
Yeah.
There's questions. And so Ryan Day said, we don't need you. Ryan Day has found a way, especially in the NIL area, to not only recruit stud football players, but guys who are not going to embarrass your program.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that had Urban Meyer stayed at Ohio State, we would actually not be nearly as successful as we are right now.
That's a pretty bold take.
It is.
That's a pretty bold take. No, I think you bring up some great points, man. I've been fortunate enough to coach with some phenomenal coaches, to be attached to some different programs that are known for winning. I've clinicked with a bunch of programs that are known for winning. I've worked with coaches from every background. I've worked with the guys like myself who identify as players coaches that understand that it's a player's game. I've worked with guys that are like, I don't care. This is the way we're doing it. And if you don't like it, you can kick rocks. I'll tell your mom that. I'll tell your dad that. I'll tell you that. It doesn't matter. I've seen people be successful with both. And so I would never knock somebody for the way that they do things if they're finding results. I may not agree with it. It may not be something that I would like to attach myself to, but if they're winning, something is working. All right. Some people are willing to sacrifice being invited to a captain's wedding later on in life for a W on Friday nights or Saturday mornings or Saturday nights, whenever it is. And there's some people that find ways to win like that. I'm not one of them. I don't identify like that. I want to build a relationship with you. And once those relationships are built, I know now that I'm going to get the best out of you and you're going to get the best out of me. You have a voice. I have a voice. We are right here. All right. I'm still, the authority figure. You still need to do certain things. I'm going to discipline, do whatever it is that I need to do. But at the end of the day, I want your input. I want your feedback. Urban never struck me as somebody that was like that. Urban has always struck me as somebody that you are going to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, I will go find somebody, regardless of their character, that will do it this way so that we can go win and that are hungry for winning. I'm not saying either way is wrong, but in the NIL world, having complete control. Why do you think Nick Saban left? All right. Nick Saban is an old school NFL guy, right? The head coach and the GM run everything. This is our show, right? You're not seeing that in the college game anymore. Coaches are having to adapt. Ryan Day, I think, is the perfect coach for the NIL era. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be on the hot seat if we lose to Michigan again or if we don't win an Natty this year. But I just think, parents are loving the fact that they can come to Ohio State now and know that my child is being taken care of in every facet of his life, not just on Saturdays. And I think that goes such a long way when it comes to recruiting, especially when you're trying to get guys that want to be here. Because that's the thing with the NIL, like you said, they've got options. They can go other places. I don't know how well Urban would work in this era. And Urban is one of the greatest coaches of all time. One of the greatest coaches of all time. I lost a little respect for him when he went to the NFL and some of the things that he was doing with the Jaguars. Like, those are grown men. Like, that stuff you did in college is, I don't think it was going to work. You know what I mean? So I think Urban would struggle with this. The fact that he's got a player that has an opportunity to make $1 million in NIL money, I don't think that would go well for Urban. And so I don't know if we would be in the conversation to be in the playoff every single year if Urban were still here. And that's crazy to say because I think Urban is, one of the greatest coaches of all time, regardless of how he did it. Like he found a way to win. He's a winner. And that's just what he does at the college level. So I agree with your take, man. That's it's bold. It's bold, but I agree with it 100%.
It is. So we're gonna revisit the Georgia game real quick with this one. What if the ref did not see Kirby Smart frantically calling timeout on the fake punt? So that was what, a 4th and 1. Inside, we were like in our own 35, 36.
Yeah.
4th quarter, 9 minutes to go. Direct snap to Mitch Rossi. Play goes off, gets the first down. Kirby Smart called a timeout.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We had 12 guys on the field.
Yeah, I was just about to say. I literally wrote that down.
Which I believe is reviewable.
It is.
So it doesn't matter.
No.
Because somebody somewhere would have caught the fact we had 12 guys on the field. Now you're 4th and 6 and you're punting the ball anyway.
Yeah. No, I can't even add anything to it. There was 12 guys on the field. It was a great call. It was a perfect setup. Obviously, Kirby Smart recognized that and had to call a timeout. So kudos to, I know he gets a bad rep, but Parker Fleming, he had something drawn up that was actually going to work, but he still put 12 guys out there on the field. So, it sucks, but yeah it would have. I don't think anything would have changed.
So this is probably the second or maybe even the first most brought up one. We're gonna go 2 for 1.
Okay.
What if the Okuda strip and Jordan Fuller touchdown gets called a touchdown and Sean Wade doesn't get ejected in the 2019 Clemson game?
Yeah. All right. Hey, listeners, if you're not listening, or if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, I'm going to try to do something here for the first time and show history and show this clip because it still is mind-boggling to me that this was not a fumble. So bear with me. I'm going to try. I'm actually kind of nervous to do this right now, Jeremy. I'm not going to lie to you.
Hey, but this has been your baby. So let's. All
right. We're sharing screen. We got fumble. All right. Do we see anything?
I see it. I see a play.
Okay. All right. Here we go. We're going to let it play.
So this is Justin Ross that catches this, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
oh my gosh. How is that? It makes me sick to my stomach.
Well, what makes it even worse is that the ESPN rules analyst that night was adamant that it was not a fumble, just like they were adamant that Trevor Lawrence was the greatest quarterback since Joe Montana.
Oh my gosh.
So
look at this.
Catch, possession, like 900 steps, a tuck, like,
oh my
God.
God.
So, at that point, Ohio State had given up a 16-0 lead. And, this play happens. Not only do you get the touchdown, but the momentum. And a game that you were so much the better team.
Yes.
How weird is it to see Josh Proctor on the field in that game?
That is so crazy. I still do not. I will never understand how they came to that conclusion. I absolutely dumbfounded.
I'm trying to figure out how Ryan Day did not go to jail that night.
Yeah.
So, that game, so you had that play. And then Sean Wade got tossed in the second for targeting Sunshine.
Very
on
questionable.
a play where Sunshine was being drugged to the ground already, or he ducked.
Yeah, he ducked.
You know, he ducked. Wade was already going in. If Trevor's standing up, Wade hits him right in the gut.
Yeah.
Sean Wade was eating in that game.
Yeah, he was.
So Wade gets tossed, 16-0 game. Amir Reap comes in.
Yeah.
You know, and not a knock on Amir Reap. It's a similar. You're going against Justin Ross.
Yeah.
I can't think of who else they had, but Clemson had weapons.
Yeah, they were good.
Now I will say, we left a lot of points on the board in that game.
Heck yeah, we did.
You know, we kicked 3 field goals to start the game. You know, you had the JK drop, the Dobbins overturned touchdown. You had the overthrown wheel route. You know, that game could have easily been like 24-0 before the half.
Yeah.
So as much as those two plays sucked, and you know, the fumble was wrong. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The Wade targeting call, and Sean Wade's my boy, one of the nicest dudes I've ever met.
Yeah.
You know, we still had a chance to win the game.
We did. We did.
You know, Fields led us down the field. Olave cuts right.
Yeah.
Fields throws left.
Yeah.
And picked off.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, if he throws it left, or if Wade cuts left, or if Justin throws right, we win the game.
We win the game.
They were both there.
Yeah, they were both there. Yeah. It's a tough.
I don't know that you can say you win the game if both of those don't happen, because I don't know. I'm more worried about in that game the offense and their inability to score touchdowns.
Yeah, I think obviously with the fumble return for a touchdown, I think we're able to we find a way to win at the end. I think that would have been enough of a spark that would have carried us through. But like you said, the offense did leave some points out there on the scoreboard, and you know, what a talented team, man. Just looking at that play, looking at that defense and the way it was drawn up, like, God, Jeff Hafley was so good. He was so good as a DC, man. He was so good.
He was. And you know, as much as it sucks he left for BC, you know, you got to strike, just like Bill O'Brien. You got to strike when the iron's hot.
Absolutely, man. I'll never fault any coach wanting to leave that wants to go be a head coach.
You're going to go be a head coach at a Power 5 school. I mean,
yeah.
So I'm going to jump through a couple of these because we are already diving into time.
Yeah.
So what if Ted Ginn does not get hurt celebrating the kickoff against Florida?
No.
This is another one. A lot of people
are not
going to like my take on. So we'll roll the clip.
Oh God. What a day. What a day that was.
Dude, that was like the highest of highs to the lowest of lows.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Going to try and run the ball a little.
Gosh.
So
I thought for sure after this. Yep.
You know, OSU, Florida.
Heads down, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the 35 and you knew he was gone.
It was over. It was a wrap. And then we got a little overzealous here, and we tackle him.
And Roy Hall takes him out. I think it was
Roy Hall takes him out.
Who is one of the best human beings ever. Like, the stuff that dude does for the community, man. I'll keep it brief. We still lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pardon my French. We got our asses absolutely handed to us in the trenches on both sides of the ball that game. Urban Meyer had those boys ready for a fight.
Yeah.
Our boys were not ready for a fight. You know, you look at our O-line and you're going against the DN. I cannot think of his name.
Oh, gosh. What the heck was his name? Carlos Dunlap.
Yes. So Carlos Dunlap, knew what Troy Smith had for lunch that night by the time he was done.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
he did.
Then you had our D line going against the Pouncey twins.
Yeah.
Nah, man, we still get smoked even with Teddy.
Yeah, I think that was a situation where everybody had built up the Ohio State, team up north game that year, obviously 1 versus 2. We went out, we took care of business, we found a way. We got Troy Smith coming off the Heisman. There was a ton of hype. We got Teddy Ginn, fastest player in the country, right? So there was a ton of that. And I think, Florida had kind of, it's weird to say they went to a national championship and went under the radar, but you think about that, Chris Leak at quarterback, it wasn't like, like it definitely wasn't
the Tebow package though.
Yeah, they did have the Tebow package. Yeah, Percy Harvin and some of those other guys out there, Lewis Murphy. Like, I think people just underestimated the talent on that Florida team. But yeah, defensive line wise, I don't feel like we were prepared for the speed that we saw that night. Not a knock, because a lot of those guys on that offensive line from Ohio State went and had great NFL careers. But I think going from playing, the Big Ten, big bodies, the big thick guys, you weren't seeing a bunch of speed edge rushers like that. That's why like people like Vernon Golson had so much success in the Big Ten. It's because there weren't that many. But now you got this freak of nature in Carlos Dunlap, who went on to have a fantastic NFL career. I just don't think we were prepared for that. And I think, there are some rumors out there that people were, living off the hype still and, enjoying themselves quite a bit during the winter break before that. And so I don't think it would have changed the outcome, but I think it could have had a bigger impact if he was able to play. It didn't matter who he was going up against. He could take the top off of any defense, and Troy was going to get him to rock. Like Troy's deep ball that year was pretty freaking solid. So he was going to find a way to get him to rock. But, I don't think it would really change the outcome, but it's definitely a fun conversation to have because.
Oh, yeah. And that was the game that really brought to light the whole SEC speed thing. That game exposed and I mean, that in a way you could say that game changed the landscape of college football.
Yeah.
Because of the changes that were made.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do 3 more. One of them is one of my favorite ones ever because again, I think it's a pretty easy one. What if we get more than 1 year of Maurice Claret? He wins a Heisman.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And we probably win the 03 Natty.
Yeah.
Krenzel did Krenzel things that year. Defense was rock solid. You had a running back room of, and this is not a knock on these guys because I know one of them I believe is now a firefighter and one of them is doing a lot of acting. You had Lydell Ross and Maurice Hall.
Yeah.
I think Lydell had like 800 yards that season.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. I believe that, that might have been the year. I think we gave Brandon Joe carries, in a tailback role.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for sure Maurice wins a Heisman. He goes on to be a first-round draft pick. And obviously I'm sure Maurice would tell you 910 things that would change in his own personal life had he stayed.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know if he wins a Heisman, but I think he goes on and is an all-time leading rusher for Ohio State. I mean, that team that came back the next year was still pretty freaking good.
Gamble still.
Yeah, what bowl game did we go to that year? Didn't we play Kansas State?
Kansas State, the Fiesta.
Yeah, the Fiesta Bowl. So
Colin Klein.
So that was a team that still went to the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, without that type of running back in the backfield, I think, had he been around for 3 years, 4 years, I think he would have been in that discussion of, the greatest running backs in Ohio State history. I mean, some people still put him up there. I think he would have been in that conversation. I think he would have been a higher draft pick. And I think you would have seen his trajectory of his NFL career would have been a little different as well. sucks the way that it worked out, for him, but obviously he's doing really well right now. So I definitely think Ohio State would have been in a much better spot that following year, had an opportunity to probably get back to the national championship. I mean, we went to the Fiesta Bowl and our running game definitely wasn't what it could have been. And so who's to say that we wouldn't have made it back? You know what I mean? So we made it to a BCS game. We probably find a way to make it back to the Natty. So, that one is that's a great question, because what he did his freshman year, the impact that he had was crazy on a team that was already loaded. Like, that team was stacked, and now a true freshman comes in and is playing out of his mind, and arguably saved or won the Natty for us with the strip of Sean Taylor. Rest in peace.
Yeah, that play right there was insane, man.
Yeah.
So the next two are probably two of my favorite ones. I mean, we've said that a lot, but this whole episode in a way has kind of been one big Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, it really has been. I was just sitting there thinking, like, I don't think we can really do a Mount Rushmore.
No. So what if Gene Smith takes the bowl ban in 2011?
Phew.
Obviously, again, Tatgate was a joke. So, DeVere, Boom, Terrell, Solomon, this is nothing to do with those guys. But, you're 6-6. You're going to play in a meaningless game. You take that game and take the bowl ban. You're punishing the guys who put you in that position. The ones that were still there. But B, you go 12-0 the next year. In a year where college football was not overly talented.
Yeah.
You take the bowl ban, you're playing Tommy Rees and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And, odds are you get a healthy John Simon by then, because if you remember, he did not play on senior day.
Yeah.
So, again, we've said a lot of what ifs that have resulted in national championships. I don't think that Notre Dame team and Manti Te'o beat Ohio State and Braxton Miller.
The heck no.
Even with Te'o's girlfriend on the field trying to help tackle Braxton, it's not going to happen. So again, and this is why we did this, because, look at how many of these what ifs, you go from 8 to potentially 11 national championships.
Yeah.
And you are probably, not that we're not already close to that spot, but you're pretty much probably the face of college football.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to think about, that year. And I have a little bit of a different perspective on it. So COVID year, we, regular season ends, we lose to Worthington Kilbourne in the playoffs, and we have an opportunity to play more games. We can schedule up to 10.
Right.
And I remember pulling the seniors aside and saying, like, hey, like, what do you guys want to do? I totally get it. Like, I'm going to schedule these games, but if you guys don't want to play, it's totally fine. Like, they don't really mean much, but we've got a really young team that I think can be really freaking good the following year. And so I want to get them as much experience as they can. And, kudos to the, 5 seniors that we had. They were like, yeah, let's do it. And so the opportunity to just play like meaningful, in their eyes, meaningful football again was huge. I liken that to the 2011 season. As an AD, it's not an easy thing to look those people in the eye, those seniors who had sacrificed and done everything for the program, the Sabinos or whoever the other seniors that were on the team. Like, those guys under Tress had fully bought in and embodied everything what it meant to be a Buckeye. Hey, we're going to take a bowl ban this year because we don't think we're going to be as good as we're going to be next year. You know what I mean? And so, like, as an AD, like, that is a hard thing to do. If you're cutthroat and you're like an Urban Meyer, you take the bowl ban and say, hey, we're going to be really good next year, so bye. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to take the bowl ban.
Yeah, when you look at it that way, I mean, that makes
that's like,
a lot of
to
sense.
me, like, I want I would have wanted the seniors to have the opportunity to go out and play for something. If that meant going out and winning the Gator Bowl, like at least they could say, like, even through all that turmoil, we were able to go out and we finished with a winning record. We did it with the interim coach. Like, we had all this adversity and we still found a way. And that's something that you'll carry for the rest of your life. And so you risk, in my opinion, as an AD and a head coach, number one, losing Luke Fickell at the time, which would have been a major loss.
For sure.
You risk losing so many of the other guys, recruits, everything. Like, okay, so Ohio State's basically saying, like, you know, this season doesn't matter. You know, what's that to say going forward? Whereas you already know you're going to be bringing in a new coach that following year, even if you go 7-5 or 8-4, well, hey, we were playing under a bowl ban and a scholarship restriction or whatever. You have a reason to not be as good. And you know what I mean? So I think that is just like one of those things where it would have been nice to play for a national championship. I think we would have beat Notre Dame. I think Braxton would have finally gotten the respect that he deserves as a quarterback. But at the same time, like when I think about those seniors from the year before who, I don't want to say unjustly, because at the time there were people that did some wrong things, even though it was a joke, you know, to have things that, you know, they may not have partaken in for it to be taken away because of tattoos. Like I get why Gene wanted to give those kids an opportunity to play for something, but it would have been nice to see what that 12-0 team would have done.
For sure. So the last one, and this one, again, I'm going to have a pretty hot take on, I think. What if JT Barrett does not get injured against Michigan in 2014? Do we go on the 3-game run that we did? No, not even close. Because that 3-game run was so contingent on the Wisconsin game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And JT Barrett is a class act human being, an all-time great at Ohio State. We're not beating Wisconsin 59-0 with JT Barrett because we're not going to have enough possessions to do so.
Yeah.
Because we're going to run JT Barrett 45 times that night, and we're going to run off all the clock, and it's going to be like 24-0.
Yeah.
So you don't make the statement win, so you don't get to the playoff.
Yeah.
So, okay, hypothetically, you know, we beat them 35-0. Somehow we still get in because, yes, we were better than TCU and Baylor both. So now you're facing Alabama. We beat Alabama running the football.
Yeah, we did.
With just enough Cardell in there because they had to respect the run, but they had to respect the run because of Cardell's arm.
Yeah.
JT's not completing those passes to Devin Smith.
Yeah.
That, you know, now Oregon, yeah, we could have beat Oregon with JT Barrett as the quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, we could have beat Oregon with running Ezekiel Elliott and the Wildcat. I mean,
yeah.
The defense had Marcus Mariota's number. But yeah, if JT Barrett is our quarterback in 2014 the entire season, not only do I think we don't win the Natty, I don't think we make the playoff.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we would have beat the brakes off of Wisconsin still. I think we would have done it with a dominant run game. And the only thing that I don't think we would have had, the idea and the storyline behind Cardell Jones, I think that contributed to the fact that we were able to find a way to get into that playoff. The fact that he was able to come in as a third string guy, not expecting to play much this year. Now we're counting on him. You know, the media and ESPN and everybody loves that darling. And I think Cardell had become that darling. And I think it played into, you know, the perception of our team. I do think, though, we would have found a way with JT to win and find a way to win dominantly and get into the playoffs. I mean, I just don't know. Like you just said, I don't know if we beat Alabama. I think they would have loaded the box, and I think that defense at Alabama was good enough to really, I don't want to say they would shut down our run game, but they would have slowed it down enough. Um, and having Cardale, regardless of how inaccurate he may have been at times, the fact that he could launch that thing down the field 70 freaking yards to arguably the best deep ball tracker in Devin Smith I've ever seen, like that was huge. I mean, that was huge, and I think was the difference in that game. Even though Zeke did dominate, the fact that you had to worry about that, you know what I mean, was big. And like you said, I don't think we have to worry about that with JT as much. And so it hurts to say that I don't think we would go on that same run because I love JT. He's like one of the greatest Buckeyes of all time. He's one of my favorite players ever. But I do think Cardale's arm strength played such a role in that Alabama game specifically. I think we would have beat Wisconsin. I think we would have rolled Oregon as well. But that Alabama game would have that would have been a tough one without the arm strength going downfield. So yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. I have to agree with you. I don't think we go on that same run.
Yeah, that one's tough because I mean, JT is so highly regarded, and
I love that guy.
People will tell you I'm a JT hater, but after the Penn State game, give that man all of the flowers. I mean,
absolutely.
That was the best 30 minutes by an Ohio State quarterback that I had witnessed probably until, CJ Stroud against Georgia, the Rose Bowl. I mean, so yeah, there's more of these what ifs that we could have thrown out there. But we tried to hit on, A, the ones that a lot of people asked, and B, the ones that were kind of polarizing answers.
Yeah. What if?
What if? It's the classic, the classic saying. So yeah, with that said, I'm going to pass it to Slate for a shout out for the week before we take off.
Oh, yeah. I was going to give a shout out to my wife, with Mother's Day and everything. Absolute rock star. Our kids worship the ground she walks on, and she's such a graceful leader. She puts up with me. She puts up with 3 crazy girls under the age of 6. She puts up with our 2 pit bulls that are also crazy. So life is crazy in the Slater household, and my wife handles it so well. So shout out to Ernie. I love you, and thank you for all the support. I'm sorry we still have to keep wearing blue and yellow, but we'll get used to it.
I mean, at least it's not like maize and blue.
Good point.
It is truly a blue and yellow.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that said, next week, depending on how things go in the Ohio State world, we should have our hands on an NFL schedule to discuss.
Yeah.
That's always a good time. Start planning out the Browns' road to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So with that said, we apologize for this one being a day off, but no way were we going to take away from Mother's Day.
Nope.
So we will see you guys next week.
See ya.